Good afternoon and welcome to the Stratus Admissions Counseling and Beat the GMAT webinar. Today we're going to be talking about tips for a compelling MBA goals essay. I appreciate your taking time out of your day to join me today. We're going to wait a couple minutes to have some stragglers join us, and during that time I want to ask a couple questions of you so I get a sense of who's listening so I can kind of tailor my presentation. So first off, just some general questions. Where are you located? Where are you sitting today as you are listening to this webinar? I am sitting in the East Coast of the US. It's a beautiful sunny fall day here, blue skies, few puffy clouds. If you are outside of the US, could you please do me a favor and just chat me what country you are located in? We've got about 50% of our attendees are somewhere in Asia, about 15 are in EMEA, about 20% are in the US, east of the Mississippi, and then we've got some folks in other parts of the world. We've got someone from the West Coast of the US. Welcome. Thanks for answering that question. Appreciate you guys all taking time to be here. Another question. When do you plan to start an MBA? Some of the very first application submission deadlines for 2018 have passed. Perhaps you've already submitted to Harvard from last week. Perhaps you submitted early action yesterday for Duke. Maybe you've taken advantage of the Columbia rolling admissions and have already submitted an application there. We've got almost everyone applying now to be starting a program in 2018. We do have 10% are really early starters and listening to this webinar in anticipation of applying a year from now to start in 2019. So thank you for answering that question. I'm going to close this out. One more question. How many years of work experience do you have? As you probably know, for most of the top US-based MBA programs, and even worldwide, most schools have the students on average have about 4 or 5 years of work experience when they start the program. That kind of 80% range is about 3 to 5 years. So if you're out of that 80% range, either on the low end or on the higher end, you need to make a compelling explanation as to why now is the right time for you to be getting an MBA. So we have a handful of folks, less than 10%, who have less than 2 years of work experience. About a third have 2 to 4 years work experience. Apologize, I did not double check these categories because we have 2 to 4 and 4 to 6. But and so if you have 4, you might have clicked one, you might have clicked the other. We've got about a third have 2 to 4, a third have 4 to 6, and about a third have more than 6 years of work experience. So you guys are all kind of in the sweet spot. Those of you who have the less than 2 years work experience, perhaps are those who are applying in 2019 and getting an early start and understanding what the process is all about. So thanks for taking the time to answer those polls. We now kind of have critical mass. Again, thank you for joining me. So let's get started here. We've got about an hour together. You are at the Stratus Admissions Counseling and Beat the GMAT webinar. Today we're talking about tips for a compelling MBA goals essay. And with that, I'm going to figure out where my mouse is on my screen and get started. My name is Susan Cera. I'm the Director of MBA Admissions Counseling at Stratus. I did my undergrad at Dartmouth College, where I studied economics and computer science. After that, I worked for a few years in consulting before returning to school to get my MBA from Duke University's Fuqua School of Business. Coming out of school, I made a pivot to work as a product manager in a number of software companies and companies in the e-commerce space. Keep in mind that this was probably when many of you were preschoolers or elementary school students. So the cutting edge at that point was internet commerce, of simply buying and selling things on the internet. I started in the e-commerce space the day that there was a front page Wall Street Journal article on Amazon.com, which was the new and brilliant thing that you could buy books online back in 1996. In any case, I spent about 10 years working as a product manager, and then kind of put my career on hold for a little bit to focus on my family, at which point I moved to North Carolina and returned to Duke, where I worked with the admissions committee at Fuqua for about a decade. And it was during this time that I read thousands of essays. Some of them were super boring. Some of them were incredibly compelling and memorable. There's one particular essay that I remember reading. It must be at least 10 years ago now, but it still stays with me because it was that powerful. A Korean applicant had written about the time he spent cooking with his mother in the kitchen and the conversations they had and how that formed kind of his worldview. So incredibly powerful. In any case, I read a lot of great essays and a lot of terrible essays, and there were many times during my tenure at Duke where I realized that applicants were way stronger than what they were presenting themselves as through the application process because they just didn't understand what was expected of them. And it's for that reason that I moved over to Stratus. And now I get great satisfaction of helping my clients to navigate this really complicated space of MBA admissions. So a little bit about Stratus. We are a full service admissions counseling firm. We've been around for a little bit more than a decade. Every year we work with hundreds of MBA candidates, and every year we have acceptances at all the top schools. And now is a super exciting time because many of our clients who we worked with last year are, getting their feet wet, meeting their teams for the first time, getting acclimated to the new communities that they have become part of as a result of their work with us. So it's super exciting to hear from these students and have them reach back out to us and welcome the opportunity to be connected with our next generation of Stratus applicants who are looking at their programs. We've got great ratings on sites like Beat the GMAT, where you can, if you work really hard, you can find some reviews there, but Google and Yelp, lots of 5-star reviews. And one here that in particularly was meaningful to me, it's the best money that you will ever spend. A lot of our clients find that their investment in our services really pays itself back because many end up getting scholarships for school, which means that spending $5,000 to $7,000 to work with us and getting $20,000 taken off of each year of your MBA tuition, you do the math. We've been featured experts in publications like the Financial Times, Forbes, and U.S. News and World Report. And what's really unique about Stratus is we use a team-based approach. You don't just work with one individual counselor, you work with a primary counselor, and then there's a team behind you supporting your work. Given a senior strategist who checks in with you and your primary counselor at key points during the process to ensure that your strategy makes sense, to make sure that your outlines are highlighting the right things and structured well for each of the schools you're applying to. And because our team is comprised of MBAs from almost all of the top 20 programs, we are able to provide all of our clients with what we refer to as school-specific reviews on their essays. So when your essays are just about ready to be submitted, your primary counselor will send them along through a process by which they are read along with your resume by someone who knows nothing about you. So they can look at your essays and provide feedback as if they were admissions committee. And you'll have an opportunity to work with your counselor to incorporate that feedback in advance of submitting. We also have a client relationship manager available to you at all times should you have any questions about the process. And we have a team of proofreaders who ensure that your essays and your resume have all of the appropriate grammar and punctuation. And we also have a unique 4-school guarantee. If you work with us on a comprehensive package of 4 or more schools and are denied at all of those, we will work with you again either the following year or the following round free of charge. So we really stand by the methodology that we use with our team to get you into the schools that you are interested in attending. So with that, let's talk quickly through our agenda for today. We're going to talk about areas of evaluation. You probably have heard that business schools look at applications holistically. What does that mean? We'll go through that. We're going to talk about why goals are important. Then we're going to drill down on the topic of this webinar, the MBA goals essay. Hopefully we'll have time to do a quick overview of MBA essay don'ts. Then we'll talk next steps. We'll do a little bit of a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions throughout, feel free to put them in. I will try to remember to look over on the questions section and address questions as I move forward. But if not, if you put them there, I'll answer them at the end. And we do have a survey, a quick survey when the webinar is over, and I would appreciate you completing that to give us some feedback to make sure that this is a valuable use of your time. So with that, MBA areas of evaluation. Again, business schools look at applications holistically. They're not going to just look at a softer GMAT and throw you out the door. They're going to look at everything. So the first area they look at is academics and quantitative readiness. So these are the things that really drive the rankings: your GMAT score or your GRE score, your undergraduate GPA, the competitiveness and the rigor of the undergrad major that you pursued. What they're really looking for in looking at your academics is, are you prepared to take on the rigor of their MBA program? The last thing they want to do is admit people who are going to struggle through the curriculum. Because there's a lot of team-based work that happens in many of these programs, and you don't want to be a drag on your team. So they want to make sure that you're ready to be successful in the program. The next area of evaluation is your work experience. I asked up front, how many years of work experience you have. And it's not just about years of work experience, it is what you've accomplished through your work. Do you have any experience at managing projects, people, or budgets? Do you have perhaps global experience? Have you managed cross-functional teams? Have you managed perhaps cross-cultural projects with teams that are distributed around the globe? These are all very interesting things for admissions committee to look at. They're going to be looking at not only your accomplishments, but the impact that you made. Have you developed as a leader? Have you perhaps been promoted ahead of your peers? So work experience, very important. The next area they look at is your leadership and community involvement. Some of that leadership may take place in the workplace, but for those who have 0 to 4 years of work experience, it's quite frequently the case that leadership is not something that's immediately accessible in the workplace. So look for opportunities to get involved in your community. Perhaps in something that you're passionate about that aligns with your goals moving forward. And one reason that business schools are looking for your leadership and community involvement up until this point in time is that many of the top MBA programs are student driven. There are lots of clubs, activities, speaker series, conferences, treks. These things happen because students make them happen. And if you have never been involved in things outside of your school or work in the past, it's unlikely that all of a sudden you're going to miraculously take a leadership role in the consulting club. It just isn't going to happen, or at least it's not going to be believable to the admissions committee. Next up is your recommendations. Most schools are going to be looking for a recommendation from your current immediate supervisor, and then you, for most schools, need to submit one additional recommendation. That person is up to you as to who you're going to pick. You want to have people who are going to supplement information you're providing about yourself elsewhere in the application. And finally, what we're going to talk about today, essays. Imagine, if you will, that admissions committee is doing a report card for each applicant on these 5 different areas. And imagine, if you will, that for each of these areas, you're going to get a grade of an A through an F. Obviously, you want more A's and B's than you have C's and D's. If you have any F's, chances are you are not going to move forward in the process. For things like your academics, your work experience, even your leadership and community involvement, there's very little you can do right now if you're applying to start a program next year that's going to move the needle Say you're a C in terms of your work experience because you just have 2 years of work and you haven't been promoted yet. There's no way you're going to push that to an A in the next 3 or 4 months before you apply. Similarly, with your leadership and community involvement, you might be able to move from a B to a B plus or an A minus, but you're not going from a D to a B. Your essays, however, every single one of you starts with a blank screen or a blank piece of paper. And there's no reason that every single one of you cannot get an A on your essays. It's all up to you and the effort that you want to put forth to make your essays as compelling as possible. Essays are really an opportunity to demonstrate fit with a program that can override some of the stats that are elsewhere in your application. So with that, we're going to dig really quite deep here. But first, let's talk about why goals are important. You will hear from a lot of admissions committees that they realize that about 80% probably of the students who graduated this year are doing something entirely different than what they wrote about in their application 2 years ago. But year over year, admissions committees still want to know what their applicants' goals are. And the reason they're important is that in articulating your goal for getting an MBA, you are letting admissions committee know that you have thought through how you're going to get from where you are today to where you want to go after an MBA. That's going to help to inform, what classes you might need to take, what clubs you might get involved in to get from where you are to where you want to be. And although they realize that that end goal may change during the 2 years that you're in business school, if you've already gone through the process of connecting the dots from where you are now to where you want to be, they're confident that if that end goal changes a little bit, you'll be able to connect a different set of dots to get where you want to go. The reality is that if you go into business school without a goal in mind, there is so much going on in business school that 2 years later, you might still be in a course of self-discovery and have no idea where you want to go. You're more confused than when you started. So it's very important to articulate your goals going in. The one school that does not care about where your goals are is MIT. So keep that in mind. All right, the MBA goals essay. Let's drill down here. Goals essay, I'm using this word loosely because this essay comes in kind of different forms, but essentially any school is going to kind of be getting at, what are your short-term goals? What's your long-term goal? How is an MBA from our program going to help you get from where you are today to where you want to be? So that's kind of the gist of the goals essay. You may also be asked this question in an interview situation, so you need to answer it whether or not the essay is about this particular topic. So the first thing you need to do in preparing to write an MBA goals essay is self-reflection and introspection. Think about what really motivates you. What are you really passionate about? What is it that you love about your current job? Do you love engaging with other people? Do you love digging deep in data and drawing conclusions? Do you like solving problems? What is it that really gets you up and gets you going? And from that, what are your career aspirations? What's your dream job 20, 30 years from now? Where do you really see yourself, and what impact might you be making in the world and in your local community through your work? How has your experience prepared you to get to these goals? So thinking about what you've accomplished, what impact you've had in the past, what skills you've developed, what expertise you have. And from that, you can discover what you need from an MBA. I've had clients work through introspection exercises only to realize that their dream job is something that they could make a parallel move to now without an MBA. They don't need to go and invest 2 years of their life and give up 2 years of a salary. They have what they need to do that job today. And that's pretty important discovery. What are your areas for development? Perhaps you need to develop more cross-functional awareness. Perhaps you are purely, an accountant, and you really haven't seen how accounting connects with all the other pieces of a business. Perhaps you haven't had an opportunity to lead, and the role you're shooting for out of business school and long-term is going to require leadership skills that you have not developed yet. And so you're looking for that sort of leadership development through an MBA program. Or perhaps, you want to go into investment management. And although you've tangentially been involved in the finance space, you need depth of coursework around portfolio management, emerging markets opportunities, and all sorts of things in that area. So once you've done self-reflection, another thing that you need to think about actually in self-reflection is, what do you bring to an MBA program? A lot of schools will talk about their MBA program being a transformational experience. It's not just a transactional one where you go in, you take the classes, you walk out with your degree. They really expect a transformation. This is an opportunity for growth, for self-reflection during your 2 years, for addressing these areas for development and coming out of your 2 years ready to take on the world in a way that is just not possible today based on the skills and experience that you have. And one thing that you want to come out of through your self-reflection is your why, kind of why MBA. And this is a quote I pulled off of a blog from Fuqua. It says, your why is your fuel when you need pushing, and your nourishment when you've forgotten to eat because you've been so busy. So spend a lot of time focusing on your why. Learn how to talk about it succinctly, at length, and in passing. So what exactly does this mean? You will inevitably be asked, why MBA? You might specifically be asked, why an MBA from our particular program? You need to be able to answer this in an essay, so kind of at length. You need to be able to answer it in an interview situation. You need to be able to answer it if you're visiting the school and you sit down in a class next to a first year who asks you, why MBA? So that's the in passing. So make sure that you understand that why and you can articulate it really clearly. And with that, the need to articulate not just your why MBA, but your goals and what you need from an MBA. So the first thing I really encourage coming out of introspection with my clients is for them to identify an achievable, that's a key word here, achievable short-term goal. So if you are someone who's working in IT and that's all you've done for the last 4 or 5 years, having your short-term goal be to be an investment banker may not really be achievable. That goal should be connected with the skills, experiences, and expertise that you've developed so far in your life and through your work. The next thing I ask my clients to do is find a job description for that goal. Who is doing that job today? Do they have an MBA? Once you find that job description, you can work backwards and figure out what are the things you need from an MBA. What skills do you already have today? What are the gaps that an MBA can help you fill? So this is, again, highlighting your areas for development. So, if you need programming skills to get to the job that you want, an MBA is probably not the answer for you. But if what you need is an understanding of business strategy, an MBA might be the great step to get you to where you want to be. Establish your career aspirations. So beyond just your short-term goal, where do you see yourself 15, 20, 30 years down the road? And what's the impact that you are making? And you want to make sure to connect your goals with your passion. Just stating a goal that doesn't have anything to do with your background and your experiences is not particularly compelling. But if you can connect your goal with some personal experience in your life to date, it makes your goals essay way more powerful, way more compelling, and way more memorable. So the next thing, once you have identified what your needs are and what your goals are, you need to go about doing research to identify the MBA programs that will help you fill the gaps. The reality is the degree that you receive an MBA is the same from all these programs, but the learning that you do within the program is going to be different at every one of these programs. So how do you go about engaging with MBA programs? You make connections. Now, the first and most obvious way to make connections is to go to the school's website and start reading through their materials. You can attend MBA tour events. Large portion of our audience today is in Asia. Depending on where you are, there may be tour events, schools coming to visit your local area. We recently published an article on our website about getting to know programs from when you're halfway around the world. It's not necessary that you pack your bags and take 2 weeks off of work to do a grand tour of a bunch of US programs. It could break your bank. So take a look at that article about how to connect with schools from halfway around the world. And regardless of where you are in the world, you can reach out to current students, to alumni, ask questions, learn about what their experiences were. And there are a couple of areas in which we encourage our clients to connect, and it's all C's. And I feel like it's a marketing class. The first one is curriculum. So beyond the core curriculum in a particular program, are there electives that are necessary for you to take in order to get to your goal? Is there a concentration or a major aligned with your goals? If you want to be in the healthcare space, is there a healthcare major? Is there a certificate program? Wharton, Kellogg, Duke all come to mind if healthcare is your space. Beyond just the classes that you're taking for curriculum, what is the teaching style? What are the methods that they use? Is it a pure case method? Are there experiential learning opportunities where you can take your classroom learning and go and test it out in a safe space where you're going to be getting feedback? I spoke briefly about core curriculum. Some schools insist that everyone do the core. You know, if you're an accountant, you've been an accountant for a number of years, you're still going to take basic financial accounting with everyone who doesn't even know what a balance sheet is. At other schools, you could place out of classes entirely, or you might be put in kind of tiered classes based on what your experience is to date. So look at these things, figure out what works for you. You have 2 years of classes to do. How are you going to best use those to get from where you are to your attainable post-MBA job? The next C is clubs. So under clubs, it's a C, so I use clubs, but clubs encompasses things like conferences, speaker series, case competitions, industry treks to go visit companies, perhaps in the energy industry, or perhaps visiting companies in a particular geography with a particular club. These are all great opportunities to take your classroom learning and test it in a controlled environment. Lots of great leadership roles, and one thing that's great about clubs is that, you know, if you're in, say, the marketing club and you're helping to organize the annual marketing conference, perhaps you'll be tasked with putting together a panel on social media marketing and the impact it's having in a particular industry. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to test out some of your organizational skills, your teamwork skills, your negotiating skills. But perhaps more importantly, it's an opportunity for you to engage with industry leaders who are feet on the ground in the space where you want to land a job. So it's that relationship building with industry leaders that is super valuable through clubs. And I've kind of touched mostly on kind of professional clubs. Don't underestimate the value of participating in either an affinity club or just an interest club. Great learning to be had in organizing a food around the world event through a culinary club and getting exposure to different cultures, engaging with classmates who are from different countries in the world and learning about their cultures and their countries through food. Great opportunities. And the final C is community or culture. And if you are halfway around the world, this can be kind of hard to judge. I do encourage you to get feet on the ground in a program or get to an event where you perhaps can engage with some students or alumni. But essentially what you're going to be looking for here with respect to community and culture is, can you find your people? Is this somewhere where you see yourself fitting in for the next 2 years? Because these are going to be your people, not just for the 2 years you're in business school, but for the remainder of your career and your life. These are the people who could very well be, in your wedding or at your wedding. So you want to make sure they're people that you want to be spending time with, because trust me, putting 4 people, 5 people in a small classroom for hours on end working on a project, you want to make sure that these are people that you're going to gel with, that you're going to learn from, and that you as an individual will grow to be a better person, a better professional as a result of being with them. Now, if you happen to have a significant other or perhaps even a family, keep in mind the community and culture that's going to be supportive of them. They are part of this decision-making process for you. So perhaps not so engaged in your goals, but if you have a family, your goals need to be aligned with beyond yourself. Let's just say that. All right, so at this point, we haven't even talked about what the essays are. So move on to that. Contemplate the prompt. I pulled kind of 3 different examples of goals essays from Columbia, Wharton, and UCLA. Range of schools, all more or less asking the same question. So Columbia's, it's, through your resume and recommendations, we have a clear sense of your professional path to date. What are your career goals over the next 3 to 5 years? And what, in your imagination, would be your long-term dream job? Okay, Wharton asks a little bit more succinctly, what do you hope to gain professionally from the Wharton MBA? And Anderson rather, describe your short-term and long-term career goals. How can the UCLA Anderson experience add value to your professional development? There's no one response that could be used for all 3 of these. When I applied to college, there was no such thing as the Common App. There is no Common App for business school. This is not like applying to a graduate program in a particular discipline. It's not like applying to law school. There is no personal statement or statement of purpose that can be reused from one school to the next. The reason that I went through that last slide about engaging with these schools is that you need to drill down and have very specific information about these programs, the resources available, and be able to connect your goals with the resources that are available at these schools. Because at the end of the day, each of these schools has way more applicants to fill their seats than they have spots in their class. And they're not going to extend an offer of admission to someone who has not taken the time to get to know their program and articulate how their particular MBA program is the right fit for them. I can tell you during my time in admissions, I remember seeing an applicant who had stellar undergrad grades, probably a 760 or higher GMAT. And, the essays were kind of didn't really connect. This person wasn't even granted an interview because they did not connect. They had stats that were amazing, wonderful work experience. But the reality was, we realized that this person was not bought into attending our school, and therefore they didn't move forward in the process. At almost all of these schools, your essay is a critical piece in you being invited for an interview. If you are not invited for an interview, you're done. So your essay better show that fit to a particular school in order to move to the next step. So now what do we do? After you think about the prompt, start with outlines. I cannot emphasize this enough. I've been reviewing a lot of outlines this week and essays for Stanford, for Wharton, less so for Columbia because a lot of our clients have already submitted for Columbia, for UCLA. If you start with outlines, you can get all your ideas down and do it in a way that you're not wed to your words, and you can make, it's more easy to make changes. So start with, you get 500 words for all these essays that we just looked at. You need an intro, you need 3 body paragraphs, and you need a conclusion. Tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them in 3 paragraphs, 3 body paragraphs. Go deep on the 3 things that you want to tell them. and then sum it all back up. Engage the reader. I cannot tell you how boring it is to read essay after essay that starts with, my short-term goal coming out of X MBA program is Y. Do you know how many applications admissions committee reads every day? You really need to engage the reader from the first sentence. So start with an example. We spoke earlier about introspection and self-reflection, about finding your passion. If you can share a story that informs the reader as to why you have this goal moving forward, you'll bring them in, you've caught them, and they're going to pay attention. So incorporate your research as you go about sharing the perhaps 3 areas where you need to grow professionally at Wharton, perhaps. Share the detail about your research. What class are you super excited to take? Perhaps you've engaged with a student. Use their name. And show, don't tell. So for a long time I was hearing this and I didn't quite understand it. Telling is just saying to someone, I am a great empathetic leader, or I am an empathetic leader. Don't just tell me that you're an empathetic leader. Give me an example that shows that you're an empathetic leader. Talk about how you realized when one of your juniors came to you and said, you know, I'm having some trouble at home and I really need some time. And you as a leader went to someone else on your team and said, hey, can you pick up some slack here? We really need to give our teammate a little bit of downtime to focus on some things that are going on at home. That shows me that you're an empathetic leader. Don't just tell me. Make sure to highlight the learning that you anticipate, your contribution and or your impact. So if you talk about wanting to be part of the social impact club, don't just tell me that you're going to join the social impact club. Tell me that you would like to be involved in the social impact club and help to organize the annual Sustainable Business Conference and bring in leaders such as X who have made a great impact in their companies and in the communities in which their companies do work related to sustainability. When you talk about taking a class, don't just cut and paste the class description from the website. Trust me, I've seen it, it does not work. Share what you hope to learn from that professor and connect it to your goals. So once you've written those essays, now it's time to write, get feedback, and rework. I typically like my clients to have probably 2 to 3 weeks to work on each set of essays. A week or so on outlining, and then using the team approach at Stratus, the outlines that one of our clients works on, with me, would be sent to a senior strategist for review to ensure that they're working, that the structure works, the content is all there. The senior strategist will highlight ways to make it stronger. And then we write, sometimes doing 2, 3, 4 iterations with feedback, incorporating that feedback. So make sure to tell your story. You don't want to be coming across as someone who's exactly the same. You're an investment banker who has done X, Y, and Z, and now you want to go into private equity. Tell me why you want to go into private equity. Perhaps you've watched a family business kind of fall apart because it didn't have the capital that it needed. It didn't have the people running the company didn't have the knowledge, and a private equity investment could have saved that. Get everything down. I don't want you to be writing 1,000 words for a 500-word essay, but if you start at 600, 700 words, having more in there and figuring out what can be kept and what needs to go makes it a little bit easier. Ask for feedback. I can't emphasize this enough. The number of people who kind of write an essay and wait too late for feedback. We actually had a client who had just purchased hours for essay review with us. And unfortunately, we got those essays so late in the game, the individual had not done any of the introspection. They didn't have clear goals. They hadn't connected with the schools. And by the time we saw those essays, a week before the deadline, our advice was, hey, time out, hit the reset button, wait till round 2. Get that feedback, incorporate it. Eliminate extra words. There comes a point where you're like, I've got 530 words, I got to get down to 500. So, as you are getting towards the end of your edits, just tighten things up. Are there some extra adjectives or adverbs that really don't add value? You really don't need to say outside of the classroom, I hope to get involved in XYZ club. You know what? They know that that club is outside of the classroom. So take those words out. Strengthen your connections with the program. I talked earlier in the outlining phase about, talking about your lessons that you're going to learn, the impact that you're going to make, your contribution. Even stronger is that perhaps you had a conversation with someone in leadership for the energy club at a particular school, and you had an idea that you ran past them of something you wanted to do. You can reference that conversation in your essay. The energy space, tons of people from the energy space applying to business school right now, given the global situation in the energy world. You really need to be able to tell a great story to be admitted from the energy space. So making those connections to schools, to clubs, to classes, super valuable. And it shows the school that you have taken the time to get to know them. And proofread. You don't want to be that person who spells Columbia like the country. And trust me, I've seen it. I've also seen people who have kind of cut and pasted materials from a different program and left in references to a professor or a school or a club at a different school. Not good. All right, next steps. I'm going to skip past the don'ts today. Apologize that I want to leave time for Q&A here at the end. You know what? MBA applications are complicated. There are a lot of moving parts. If you're applying to more than one school, there are tight schedules. There are nuanced decisions that need to be made. I was helping a client the other day decide which of her 2 majors she should put first in the application form. Like, this is things that we help our clients worry about. Stratus's team-based approach we have a proven methodology, 4-school guarantee that we've been offering for years. Your primary counselor with Stratus would be supportive, responsive, insightful. These are people who are there for you day in and day out, from when you sign up with us through to not only when you submit your application, but beyond that, all the way up until when you decide where you're going to school. And then they're still there for you once you're in school. And with our team-based approach, you're able to leverage the collective wisdom and experience of 20 counselors. We have a great knowledge base so that as each counselor is learning things, they're sharing them with the rest of the team. If a counselor has a question that they don't need to know the answer to, they can reach out to the team and get support. So reach out to us and learn what it would be like to work with Stratus. Contact us for a free 30-minute consultation. There are 3 different ways you can contact us. The first is to send an email to consult@stratusadmissions.com. Send us your resume and your target schools, and we'll get started right away with you. Visit our website at stratusadmissions.counseling.com/crush-R2. The assumption now is that everyone's applying in round 2. If you do have applications that you're looking to submit in round 1, give us a shout. We can probably help you out with some hourly reviews and maybe help you make that go, no-go decision. And because you're here with us today, we have a special offer. The code is CRUSH-R2, and you can get 10% off a comprehensive package through the end of September. So you could save up to $800 if you sign up with us through the end of September. So I encourage you to to sign up and get that consultation. Learn really, what that relationship would look like and how we can move you forward in the process. We can even connect you with a former Stratus client who's now a first year in an MBA program so that they could share their experience with you and firsthand, what was it like to work with Stratus through this process. And with that, I'm going to leave a quote up here on the screen and open it up to Q&A. This is from a client who's now a first year, just talking about the value of the introspection that they did with us. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Let's see if we have some questions that have already come in. And if you've asked me a question that seems very personal in nature, I may ask you to shoot us an email with that, or we'll follow up with you directly. Ooh, we've got quite a list here. People were calling, connecting in. Maybe you're still here from India, South Korea, Spain, more from India, New York, India, Budapest, beautiful city, Judith. Loved my visit there many, many years ago, before the Berlin Wall even came down. Dennis had a question. I will not answer it because Dennis is no longer with us. Aaron wants to know what's the ideal number of words in a personal statement essay. Aaron, for MBA essays, there really is no personal statement. You have essay prompts for just about every school. And for the most part, they give you a word count. The two schools I'm thinking of, materials I've reviewed in the last couple of weeks, Harvard does not have any word count. We recommend about 1,000 words max. Similarly, Booth has pretty much an open-ended question for their essay, or you might choose to do a PowerPoint for them. We again, if you're going to write for Booth, we encourage you to stay at or below 1,000 words. Miguel wants to know, how does working in a family business, how is that considered? You know what, Miguel? Family businesses are very highly valued in business schools. There are quite a few programs that even have kind of family business clubs. I recently worked with a client who's applying to Columbia who wants to take advantage of some of the resources they have around family business. How do you transition from one generation to the next? These are great things that business schools really value. And there's a lot of sharing that goes on amongst people who are coming from different family businesses. And from a goals perspective, your goal may be to return to the family business immediately following business school, or your goal may be to go out in the world and get experience somewhere else and bring that experience back to the family business. We'd be glad to have a conversation with you about how Stratus could help you to position your work in the family business and then moving that forward. Saruchi wants to know, write your way into HBS. This is not this webinar, so it may be another one that I'm not familiar with. I'm not going to pronounce your name correctly, so I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Is there a difference on how admissions handle applicants between full-time and part-time programs? Would you recommend using a consultant for part-time applicants as well? Yes, there are differences in the ways that that admissions committees work in reviewing full-time and part-time. We have worked with a lot of clients in the part-time space, finding the right program that fits your needs and fits kind of your schedule. When are you available? Where are you available? How long do you have to get your MBAs? Their flexibility. I've worked with entrepreneurs who are looking to do something part-time so they can apply their classroom learning in real time to their jobs. So definitely, reach out to us and we can talk to you about how we could help you on a part-time application. Abhishank, you have a rather personal question, so I would encourage you to reach out to us. Having me give feedback on 2 options for short-term goals without having any background on you is, I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice. So please do reach out and talk to us personally. Mari in South Korea wanted to know if we can share the PowerPoint. This session is being recorded, and we will send a link to the recording after the fact, so you can go back and listen to it at your leisure. Siddharth wants to know, at MBA tour this week, what sorts of questions can you ask the representatives? Make sure that you've done your research on programs before you go up to a school. Have your questions be related to what your goals are. You need to demonstrate that you've already researched what is available to you and not ask questions that you could easily find the answer to on the internet. Grace, fabulous question. Grace wants to know, if you have 2 career goals post-MBA that are inherently different in nature, should you speak about each of them in your essay, or should you focus on just one career goal? Grace, please do reach out to us. This is a great question. I had the opportunity earlier this summer to go to the AGAC conference on the West Coast, and we spent, AGAC is the Association of International Graduate Admissions Consultants. I spent time at Berkeley Haas, at Wharton San Francisco, at Stanford, and at UCLA. And Wharton was a school that said, you know what, we are totally okay with someone having 2, maybe 3 potential post-MBA goals. And they're using the MBA as a way to figure out which one is the best for them. So if you are using an MBA as a discovery to choose between 2 or 3 things, you can absolutely write about it. Ideally, you'd be developing similar skills to get to each of those from where you are today. And either one of those short-term goals post-MBA would lead you towards that long-term career aspiration. Annie, as a medical doctor, which program with a focus on health policy should I focus on? Annie, I mentioned a couple of healthcare focused programs: Wharton, Kellogg, Duke, WashU has great healthcare. UCLA is seeing way more demand for people coming out of their program to go into healthcare related jobs, and they have students who want to go into those jobs. So take a look at that school. Do reach out to us through the introspection. We'll help you identify programs that'll help you meet your needs. Bob wants to know, for extracurriculars, do those done within the companies count as something, or does it have to be outside? Bob, what they're looking for is you doing something beyond yourself. So if you're doing recruiting for your company, or you're organizing all the social events for the juniors, or you're a subject matter expert within your company, you just need to show that you've developed leadership skills and you care about people beyond yourself. Arjun wants to know, do you have a reapplication strategy? Definitely reach out to us. We have, there's no one size fits all for reapplication. It really depends on what your situation was last year, what areas there are for improvement, whether or not you're hitting the right target schools. Have you addressed things that were weaknesses last year, this year? So please do reach out, have that conversation. We'll share how Stratus can help you. Daniel wants to know, what's the essay's overall weight on the application? Great question. Really is going to depend on the school. But when I walk through those areas of evaluation, imagine, if you will, that each of those 5 areas is weighted evenly. So if you had 100 points, 20 of those would be for your essays. So if you compare that 20 points for your essays against maybe 20 points for your academics, which incorporate your GMAT score, your undergrad institution, your grades undergrad, your essays are 3 times as important as your GMAT. Not necessarily the case everywhere, but order of magnitude, perhaps exactly that. Danielle, please do reach out to us. If you would like to work with Stratus, we'd be glad to have a conversation on how we can help you. So one of those 3 ways, I'm actually, if I can figure this out, I'm going to move my slide back if you're still with us. Oh, crap. I cannot go back a slide, or can I? There we go. reach out to us and set up a time to talk to us. So Aditi wants to know words of advice for someone who's worked in tech for the last 3 years. What would your short-term goals be? You know, great question. I saw a lot of applications when I read applications where there was a tech person who said, oh, I want to go into investment banking or I want to go into consulting. Use your strengths and your expertise. There are a lot of companies that need people with business sense who understand the technology. There's some fabulous programs available these days that are focused on tech. NYU, for example, has a 1-year tech MBA focused exclusively on the business of technology. Carnegie Mellon this year offered a program that might be the right fit for you. They train people just to become a product manager in the tech space. So you have to have had some programming experience, and it's a 1-year program, lots of hands-on. They've got great relationships with the companies that are hiring product managers for tech product management roles. Great opportunities. So do reach out to us. We'll help you find those programs that are the right fit for you. Oh, Siddharth, I'm glad you asked this question. Siddharth wants to know, is it okay to add humor and creativity to the essay rather than being serious and mainstream? Absolutely. When I started working in admissions, we actually had printed versions and folders. And I remember, occasionally writing, I laughed, I cried, it was better than cats. If you can touch the heart or the funny bone of someone reading your application, you are in great shape. So feel free to do that. You don't want to, don't cross the line of doing something that's, inappropriate. Seeing some of that as well, but absolutely use creativity, use humor. If that's who you are, share that. Amana, great question, wants to know about things people from the oil and gas industry can do to differentiate themselves. I'm going to point you to our website. There was an article on exactly that. One of our counselors worked in the oil and gas space, so she would be a great resource for you. So take a look at that article, and if it resonates with you, reach out to us to do a consultation and understand how we could help you to position yourselves. Raji wants to know, are older applicants considered, mid-30s? Now, Raji, I'm not sure if you were with us at the very beginning. I talked about kind of the sweet spot for years of work experience being 4 or 5 years. If you are beyond that, a full-time 2-year MBA program may not be the right fit for you for a number of reasons. Point you to our website. There's an article that I wrote, published back in February or March about, am I too old for an MBA? The reality is maybe you're too old for a full-time 2-year MBA, but there are some fabulous mid-career MBA programs out there that are just 1 year, and you'd be surrounded by other people who are in their mid-30s, kind of at the same point in their careers that you are. So that social aspect of an MBA would be better suited perhaps to you. Take a look at that. If it resonates, give us a ring, drop us a note. Be glad to talk to you about finding those programs for you. Gopi, good question. Completely single country experience. Do you think an international career post MBA is okay with that level of experience? Now, there are a lot of people, Gopi, who have not had experience outside their home country until they start business school. And a lot of business schools really focus on the global nature of business. And there are opportunities for country visits, for working on a project with perhaps a company or an organization in another country. Obviously visa requirements play into whether or not you can land a job in a different country when you graduate, but an MBA really is a great way to get exposure beyond your home country. And I'm going to have time for one more question. We've run over, and I would appreciate if those of you who are still with me take some time to to answer the poll at the end. I apologize, there are, wow, so many questions. And as we go through after, I will see about reaching out to you guys, or if you did not get your question answered, please do email us at consult@stratusadmissions.com. And hopefully we can answer those questions. I'm going to do one more question here, so I'm just glancing through. Nathan, great question. Nathan wants to know, is it possible to get the list of essay don'ts incorporated into the link that I send out in the presentation? Nathan, ping us, because I'm doing the same webinar tonight at 7, and I will make sure that I cover the MBA essay don'ts in that one. And then there'll be a recording of that version as well on the Stratus website, probably in the next couple of days. I do want to thank you all for being with us. I apologize that I was not able to get to all the questions, but please do reach out. Go to our website, to that Crush R2, stratusadmissions.com/Crush R2, fill out a form, ask for a consult so we can talk to you about how Stratus Admissions can help you in this process. Do take the 2 minutes to fill out the survey at the end. And again, on behalf of Stratus and Beat the GMAT, thank you for being with us, and I wish you all the best in your MBA journey and beyond. Have a great rest of your day.